Oh man, Starfield really went and did it. I went into the Microsoft showcase expecting them to show us not an awful lot outside CGI reveals for games that they hadn't even begun working on yet. Obviously, besides that, I knew Starfield would be shown off in all its glory, and I was excited for that. But not only did they show off far more than I anticipated, Starfield's 40+ minute long showcase blew me away over and over again with just how rich, deep, engaging, immersive and utterly splendid it looks. I mean, outside of the faces looking outdated, but that's something I can look past. If the game's good, I really don't care what graphical fidelity it provides. The Starfield Direct showcase was very Bethesda Game Studios. It reminded me of the love I had playing through the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Oblivion. It was like the Fallout 4 showcase, but unlike Fallout 4, as a sequel, and not an amazing one at that, the passion in this showcase spoke volumes for how Bethesda Game Studios appear to be approaching a new franchise such as Starfield. It's a feeling you really cannot fake no matter how hard you try. So for that 45 minutes, I was glued to my screen, intensely invested in finding out more about a brand new Fallout-like experience in a new universe from Bethesda Game Studios, no less, set in space, and I was absolutely blown away at almost every little detail, with some exceptions of course, even though I had gone in fully expecting to come out mocking the shit out of it. Instead of a meme factory, which I'm sure there will be plenty of time for after the game's actual launch in September, I came away with a clear picture of the creative vision behind this highly anticipated game. My concerns for bugs and scuff will stand. It's not even a concern at this point, it's more an acceptance. However, my other concerns were, how is this game going to grip me as a player? How is this new universe going to fit in amongst the stars of the spacefaring science fiction pantheon? How is this game going to be good considering Bethesda Game Studios pissed away their reputation with Fallout 76? Or at least the weight that they hold for me. I wasn't a big fan of Fallout 76. But then again, I only really bothered to play it when it actually launched, and I've heard they've done some things with it since, and people still play it as they still release stuff for it, as I recently discovered, so they must have at least turned that around somehow. But it probably still isn't for me, so I'd rather just move on to the next thing if that makes sense. But this showcase really put my mind at ease on all those fronts, and all that remains is pure childlike excitement. I don't often get excited for games anymore. It's the curse of making gaming YouTube content or being invested in video games for a long time in general. Every single gamer out there has a handful of games that hold a special place in their heart, and once those games have found their way in, you're constantly trying to chase that high with newer releases, and it's very rare for a game to be able to do that, and I'm not saying that Starfield is one of those games because we don't know yet. But after a while of the cycle of hype and then letdown, you just stop getting hyped. Instead, for valid reasons, you find yourself being skeptical of everything, and I certainly had my fair share of reservations with regards to Starfield, but they've mostly been put to bed masterfully for a showcase that feels as if it was aimed at the consumers, the people who are actually going to be playing the game, rather than for investors to showcase projects that need funding. And since many see me as some jaded gamer, whatever that means, maybe even a toxic hater at times, I don't care. If I have an opinion, I'll say it, but if nothing else, I wanted to make this video to really embrace my anticipation for something that has convinced me in 45 minutes or thereabouts that there is still passion left in the games industry. But all I've actually said so far is that video games are like heroin, and once you pop you can't stop. But of course I knew that passion was there anyway, but when it crosses paths with a game that I'm actually interested in, coming from a company whose games you used to love, you can't help but get a little giddy, even if you still have the portion of your brain that wants to rationalise a more restrained approach. Starfield Direct blew me away. Not only was this game, at least from what we've seen, infinitely deeper and more expansive than I thought it would be, but it's also rich, gorgeous, smoothish looking, yet still very prominently Bethesda. It appears creative and purposeful, a collision of procedural generation and deliberately crafted environmental storytelling to interweave into a story about sci-fi and space shit, whilst taking advantage of modern technology and using it where it counts rather than going for photorealism. So it may not necessarily look like a game from 2023, it's an immediate graphical fidelity, but maybe Bethesda Game Studios would lose part of their charm if they really went for realism, but that's besides the point. What it does look is immersive and atmospheric. The demonstration showcased Bethesda addressing some of their previous titles' weaker points, chiefly how small settlements have been up until now, whilst showcasing much larger and more vast locations brimming that cozy, lived-in, futuristic yet almost rustic vibe, something they refer to as NASA punk. This is no doubt Todd Howard and Company's most expansive and ambitious project yet, and yes, I just said Todd Howard and Company to break down my depressingly limited vocabulary, and over the course of the showcase I may not be able to say for certain this game is going to slap because I haven't played it yet, and that would be a ludicrous assumption based on any amount of information, and it's also a Bethesda game. Launch day is effectively going to be a battle to see who can break it first. However, what I can absolutely say is that this showcase demonstrated a consistent theme across the entire 45 minutes that, in my experience, is impossible to fake. Genuine, heartfelt passion straight from the very depths of the souls of everybody talking. Over the course of those 45 minutes, we received information regarding the main story, the characters we'll be exploring, character customization, skills, our ship and how in-depth we can customize that, to the point where one of the developers made Optimus Prime on a dirty bulk to prove a point.
I've come.
It explores our companions, the spaceflight mechanic, including being able to either destroy an enemy vessel or board it. Then there were passages about the depth of the exploration and how many worlds may be barren, and in many cases procedurally generated, because there are over 1,000 of them. However, other places would also be handcrafted and packed with environmental storytelling. Some barren worlds are to be expected, but of course I was concerned about the 1,000 planets plus idea. I guess not so much anymore, because any game tailored to exploring space is going to need negative space, especially on barren planets. How much there is not quite relevant, provided there is plenty of actual meaningful environments and places you can visit to soak in the very deliberate atmosphere, to get a feeling for the universe that Bethesda are trying to create in this example. We can also build outposts, which looks like a ton of fun. I know it's basically the Fallout 4 outpost mechanic but spacey, but we can build off of that, and we can build a gaff on an alien world, so I'll take it. They showed us how alien animals looked, we got to explore how the combat will play out alongside other gameplay stuff, and the entire time I received a sense of genuine atmosphere that's been deliberately crafted for us, the players, and I cannot wait to see how that pans out when it's September and I'm finally playing the game for prolonged periods of time, isolating myself from reality and putting strain on every last one of my real life relationships. It's off to the stars with me in September, sign me up to the first Man Mars mission at this point. I will batter the first Martian I see and assert dominance, don't worry about that. Human connection is overrated, I'm going to human connect my fist to an alien's jaw. So what was it about Starfield Direct that really had me going? Well, it's like I said, whilst I still have some casual concerns, the vast majority were put to bed. I wanted to see how this game provides its atmosphere, something nothing regarding Starfield had done for me up until now. If your game consists of traversing the ultimate negative space, that being space itself, then your game is going to need to provide its own atmosphere of warmth and comfort to suit a sense of adventure-styled experience, and I needed to see that portrayed in the showcase like this. And that's exactly what the showcase did. It shows us how rich and just how multi-layered the world building has the possibility of being. I can't speak to specifics because that's an after-playing judgment, but unless Todd Howard cherry-picked these moments to suit that purpose to a painstaking degree, it's entirely possible that Starfield will hit the ground running on this point, or at the very least after it's been patched a couple times, and it gives me no reason to really doubt it. Also, being a new franchise under Bethesda Game Studios, we're stepping into a world, a galaxy completely unknown to us. The Starfield universe is new to us. Apparently, it has been 25 years in the making, which means there's plenty of time for lore to have been formulated there, so it could be quite rich. Though I don't know if I want to believe this game being conceived whilst somebody was greenlighting Morrowind's atrocious combat system, but apparently that's what it is. This new world means, unlike Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, which have their own unique atmospheres to uphold and lore to respect, Starfield is an entry point for all of us, meaning for many developers, The connection could be stronger because there may be more room for creative expression, not that it wasn't present with other franchises, but I'm just interested to see a new franchise from Bethesda Game Studios. What I am saying is Starfield doesn't have to uphold values from decades prior, it simply has to represent this group of developers who are presently working on the title, and that's the feeling I get. I don't want to pepper some pseudo-parasocial meaning to what just looks like a well-crafted game, but I can't help but feel as if perhaps there's a sense of pride in this work on an individual level, at least from those speaking, but they were of course from the leading positions in the development process. But the passion that translates from what I saw does feel genuine to me. And it translates to visually inspired scenery, immersive locations, beautiful horizons, a fucking spaceship Optimus Prime. I can't help but feel as if this could be above and beyond what's required, because though Bethesda Game Studios may not be known for innovation, it simply looks so advanced compared to titles they've released in the past, because the sky is no longer the limit, we're in the stars now. Hopefully that passion pays off and we get to play the game for ourselves. Another thing I wanted to mention was the array of characters. When being introduced to the story and what it ponders over, I noticed the ancient alien race trope weaves its way in. You can't tell a space story without some form of ancient aliens idea, it just wouldn't make sense. However, what drew me into this aspect was how much the developers speaking sell us on the environment. They explore how this game is different because of the unique planet hopping setting, how that can diversify every aspect of the game. And then there's the ship. The ship isn't just a vehicle we control when travelling between one planet and the next. We can actively explore it. We can design it, we can inhabit it, and we can invite many characters aboard to live alongside us, and we can interact with them, seemingly find them in the open world spaces, and to me that's just the absolute best aspect. One certainly not to overlook. Bethesda could have easily settled for a spacefaring game where we had a ship but it served as a transport between A and B and nothing more. Instead, we can just vibe aboard the ship if that's what we wish to do. That's an aspect I appreciated about the Mass Effect trilogy, even Andromeda, and I can appreciate it in more recent memory in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, even if in neither of those games did that aspect provide much to actually interact with, but it's the feeling it gives you that counts. This is our ship, and perhaps more so than the examples I've just listed because we can customize it extensively. It's our home and our main battle station. We can use it to fight enemies, we can board enemy vessels with it, or we can simply chill aboard the ship and destroy our enemies. And we can use the place as a hub area for downtime. I presume we can do this whilst both grounded and while in space, or at least I hope we can, because both have their immersive benefits, and hopefully in this setting there'll be plenty of dialogue from the companions we pick up. Companions are a major feature of Bethesda Game Studios titles. Wait. It's him. Why is the adoring fan in space? Just kidding, I can't wait to find a brutal, intricate way to kill him. Interacting with companions wasn't something massively expanded prior to Fallout 4 really, out of the games I played extensively. Dogmeat in Fallout 3 and 4 is the best companion, no doubts about it. In the Elder Scrolls, we have the adoring fan in Oblivion, and he's back, voiced by the same man, and yes, I will be killing him swiftly. You cannot stop me. It will be painful, and there will be no mercy.
Bye.
Fallout 4 started to expand on the companions as characters too, outside of maybe one side quest. So you had Nick Valentine. He was a good character, I quite liked him. There was Piper, and there were a few other characters throughout the world that you could interact with on a regular basis and then have them accompany you. And hopefully it's a similar story in Starfield, if not a little bit richer. And then you can turn that a bit saucy with romance if that's your thing.
I don't know that I've ever really loved anyone except you.
I can't imagine that being much beyond funny, but I don't really have to play every space game for fleshed out alien mashing. I already have Mass Effect, it doesn't need replacing. The point is, I like that there's clearly going to be an emphasis on exploring these characters, to what extent or quality it's actually done, and to what extent a lot of it will boil down to surface area noise, I cannot say. We will find out in September, but I like the idea that there are options for exploring many characters in at least 3 dimensions, whilst also having them accompany us on a mission across the galaxy to discover the meaning of the universe or whatnot. Gameplay wise, like I said, I'm very hyped to seize control of a ship I can have a part in designing, and then exploring the vessel. I don't think I'll make Optimus Prime per se, though the example wowed me. I think I'll stick with something immersive but express myself somehow with whatever I wind up doing. The character customization appears in depth. I don't think it'll be hard to deliberately craft the ugliest motherfucker in history, so my job here will be very easy if Todd is gracious. That, or it'll just be a generic guy with no outstanding features, and I know which I'd prefer. Other gameplay bits and bobs include mining barren worlds for minerals for upgrades, I presume, and things. Obviously, there will be a level up system where we amass skill points and invest them in our build to make ourselves better at the game, or at least make ourselves more outlandishly overpowered. I noticed what I registered to be some improvements to gunplay. In early gameplay footage I was worried the combat looked a touch, not massively, but a touch on the stiff side. It appears I was either wrong or they polished it up. Whilst it looks pretty standard first-person shooter style to me, but with some Bethesda elements of course, I quite liked how the movement seems to flow now. It seems more modern than Fallout 4 and certainly more so than Fallout 76. Fingers crossed on that front. Maybe there's a tad more stiffness to it than they managed to make it appear, but we'll only know when we actually get our sweaty gamer fingers on the game. I expect mechanics such as rocket boosts to float about and all that will add to the fluidity of the experience, and apparently there are tons of weapons to try out with a massive array of strengths and weaknesses to spice up the fight and give us some room to explore our playstyles as individual players, which when working hand in hand with the game's skills may prove useful, as they no doubt should. I don't necessarily want to go over every last detail we saw because I think we'll all be here all day, but you get the rough idea. Starfield looks amazing, and my pessimism has been put to bed. My caution is of course a different story. I anticipate this game to launch mangled and buggy, but I can look past that if a good game lays beneath that rough surface, and every single aspect they showed off makes me excited. The attention to detail, where it counts rather than as a blanket application, looks fantastic too. For example, your robot companion Vasco can say your name.
Welcome back, Captain Howard.
Nothing new, Codsworth could do that in Fallout 4.
Mr. Fuckface!
Doubt my surname will be in the pool of names that are recorded though, but that detail always warms my heart. There were certain bits I was completely indifferent to, like the bandit camp concept, or mining for resources. I also reckon that out of 1,000 planets, or more, the vast majority are going to be procedurally generated to significant degrees with not much going on. But for space exploration, being able to explore planets completely irrelevant to the plot with not much going on, just to take in the scenery, just to go there and be there, is a necessity. It's something they did with Mass Effect 1. These worlds were barren, there were odd bits going on here and there, but that was quite generic gameplay where you just slid across the map in a terrible vehicle and soaked in the atmosphere. And that was all it was really designed for. It was designed to allow you to feel the expansiveness of space. Hopefully there's plenty of visual distinction to follow a similar philosophy here, and if that's the case then I'll probably spend most of my time going to the meaningful places, but being able to do that is certainly a positive. Just the same, over 1,000 worlds will never not sound excessive, as I'm not really in it for the No Man's Sky experience per se, but I'm also under the impression that plenty of locations and plenty of planets will have deliberately crafted atmospheres for specific purposes that will also have plenty to explore, and balanced together they could certainly make for an interesting game here that has me excited to get stuck in. Now, I can't say until this moment I cared an awful lot either way about Starfield. I was going to play it of course, I just didn't have expectations. But now I'm sincerely hoping that it turns out to be the absolute banger it looks like, because of two reasons. A fun Bethesda Game Studios RPG. No matter how broken those turn out to be, more often than not, they're also at the very least endless fun, especially with the massive modding scene these games naturally attract. Then there's the big talking point. If Starfield is as good as it looks, or at least as good as I think it looks, then that will bode really well for the Elder Scrolls 6 whenever that releases, probably sometime after my funeral. So I'd like to conclude this video by saying that I'm excited to give Starfield a go in September and actually explore what this game has to offer. I rarely get excited, so though common sense with video games dictates pre-release caution, something I cannot stress enough myself, for a feeling I don't get an awful lot anymore with games, I'm just going to embrace it and say that Starfield looks amazing. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see how this mindset pans out for me in the end, be sure to like this video and hit subscribe, because I'm certainly going to be talking an awful lot about this game when it does release in September. But until then, I'm not entirely sure how to approach it, as I don't really do much pre-release coverage anymore, but I felt really good making this video, even if I didn't add anything of value necessarily. So, yeah, thanks for sitting through 20 odd minutes of that. I'm going to go now. Hopefully I'll see you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.